Many people are bullish on Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, but I'm actually slightly bearish. I think lower prices is quite likely for this week on both Bitcoin and also on Ethereum. In today's video, I'm exactly going to explain why. I'm also going to give my next trading ideas on both Bitcoin and Ethereum. When we look at the current 1 hour chart on Bitcoin, we can see that Bitcoin, after seeing this massive impulse towards the upside, started consolidating right over here. We can even say that Bitcoin currently is forming some sort of a triangle with the lower high trend line over here and the higher low trend line over here. So we can definitely say and agree that price currently is compressing. And I believe that this week we will see a breakout, meaning that we have liquidity that was building up towards the upside right over here and also above this high right over here. And we also have liquidity that is building up towards the downside right over here and also right over here. Now, why I'm cautiously bearish on Bitcoin, why I prefer downside for the price of Bitcoin, is due to the fact that, first of all, besides the liquidity that we have resting towards the downside over here, when we go to the 30-minute time frame, we can also see that Bitcoin has seen this massive inefficient candle right over here. Now, I'm expecting this massive inefficiency to get filled at least for 50%. Yes, guys, I can see that we quickly tapped into that inefficiency right over here, but I'm expecting that inefficiency to get filled at least for 50%. And we know that sooner or later, these inefficient candles, they get filled at least for 50%, okay? Now, the way that I usually look at inefficiency and why I think that inefficiencies are a draw on liquidity for price, and if you guys want me to make a video about this more in depth, let me know as well. But basically, try to compare to a real life example, for example, with the price of a painting. If a painting shoots up from the price of the original price of $10,000 in a very short amount of time, it's shooting up in a really fast pace towards $20,000, and then we are creating a fair value gap, a gap between $10,000 and $20,000. Now, the fact that it shot up so fast is due to the fact that there was so much demand in the market. But if the price shoots up in that fast pace from $10,000 to $20,000, are people still interested to buy that painting? Is the demand for that painting still the exact same? Probably not. So what will price do? It is gravitating back towards that fair value gap to fill that gap until demand is entering the market again. And usually if price is truly bullish and it is filling that fair value gap, demand is indeed coming back from that painting. And we can compare that to the price of Bitcoin. And that is why I think that this fair value gap needs to get filled slightly more, because this is a big inefficiency that we see right over here on the price of Bitcoin. Now, another reason why I think that there's a massive draw on liquidity towards the downside is due to the fact that we also have a CME gap that is in between $114,200 and in between $115,200. This CME gap, guys, is also acting as a magnet for price. Now, usually, if you do form a CME gap, a price is instantly trading away all the way like this, then I think you can just completely ignore that CME gap. But if price starts to consolidate above a CME gap, like we are currently seeing on the price of Bitcoin, then I always think that a CME gap is acting as a massive magnet, and I see very little reason for Bitcoin why it's not going to fill that CME gap. So, besides the fact that we have liquidity resting around $115,700 and same for $115,300, I also think that we have liquidity resting based off this massive inefficiency on the 13-minute time frame, and also due to the fact that we have the CME gap that is yet to be filled. Now, structure-wise, I think Bitcoin looks quite bearish as well, because we can see clear bearish order flow. Over here, we can see that we had liquidity resting for the price of Bitcoin. The liquidity got swept. This is where orders got paired over here, and we got an impulse to the downside. And the exact same thing was happening yesterday. We can clearly see that there was liquidity resting above that high. That high got swept right over here. After sweeping that high, we are seeing an impulse to the downside. So personally, I'm thinking that preferably, actually, we want to protect this high right over here. All right. Also due to the fact that this high yesterday got put in on a Monday. Now, when we look at the time statistics for the weekly candles on Bitcoin, then we can see that 65.4% of the weekly candles on Bitcoin form the first pivot on a Monday, meaning that if we indeed anticipate a bearish candle on Bitcoin, the weekly high is having a high probability to be formed on a Monday, a 65.4% probability to be exact. So not just based on this important liquidity sweep over here, but also based on the timing of price, I want yesterday's high to remain protected for the price of Bitcoin. And I believe that pullbacks over here are for shorting towards the downside, towards the drawn liquidity, and also towards that CME gap. Execution-wise, we can see that there's a lot of liquidity resting towards the upside on a 15-minute time frame. Guys, remember, this is yesterday's high, this is Monday's high over here. That is going to be our invalidation. But every single time time, Bitcoin is taking out either one of these buy-side liquidity highs that are resting over here on the 15-minute time frame. Those are the kind of areas where you want to look for potential short executions with a potential invalidation above Monday's high, targeting lower levels on the price of Bitcoin. As you guys can see, I'm still holding these two major swing long positions on the price of Ethereum that I've shared with you guys beforehand. And obviously, when we look in the active trade channel in the Tribe Capital community and I view the first trade over here, the Ethereum swing long, we can see that the signal on the first swing long position got shared beforehand, as always, in the Tribe Capital community, and also the entry and executions for the second position, as you guys can see over here, got shared in the Tribe Capital community way before the entry even got hit, guys. And that to me is so important for transparency reasons. 14 days of access to the best trading community in the space, Tribe Capital, and all of that for just $1. Trading live streams, educational PDFs, and so much more educational stuff, all available for free. And on top of that, we also offer trading signals. All that you guys have to do is follow the first link in the description down below. Then I'll catch you guys in the tribe. But besides the fact that I'm holding these swing longs on Ethereum and I'm continuing to hold these swing longs on Ethereum, I do think that short term this week on Ethereum, we might also see some more downside, because when we start looking at the 1 hourly time frame, we can definitely see that after seeing this major run up towards the upside on Ethereum, Ethereum is definitely seeing a bit losing of steam over here. Because what we can see is that over here, Ethereum is slow grinding towards the upside. Now we know that the slow grinds towards the upside are engineering liquidity towards the downside. And especially this pump that was taking place over here, to me, is something to be very mindful of. Now, why is that the case? Because guys, I want you to look at the timing of this pump. When I mark out the opening of the weekend over here, and I mark out the closure of the weekend right over here, we can see that this entire pump took place over the weekend. Now, one of my core rules of my trading system is that you can never ever trust a pump or dump that happens over the weekend or during a bank holiday. Meaning that I think there's a high probability that this pump will get reversed completely. And I think that this pump is actually engineering some liquidity beneath the lows over here. So these two lows around $3,539 and also around $3,507 will act as a major draw on liquidity for the price of Ethereum. Now, what is in confluence with this idea is the fact that we are looking at a potential first shift to the downside right over here on Ethereum on the 1 hourly time frame. We close this candle below. Now I prefer to open and close a 1 hourly candle below that low over here. Yesterday on Monday, we can see that also Ethereum, when we mark out the weekly open right over here, and we mark out the Monday close right over here as well, what we can then see is that also Ethereum had the weekly open, formed a weekly high, and has now been forming a new weekly low towards the downside. Once again, for Ethereum, the exact same thing goes as for Bitcoin. A lot of the times, the first pivot for the weekly candle gets formed on a Monday, meaning that this is a strong high to defend for the price of Ethereum. We can even see that based on the last 2 years of data, 63.5% of the weekly candles on Ethereum put in the first pivot on a Monday, meaning that if we indeed anticipate a bearish weekly candle this week for Ethereum, this high that was currently formed yesterday on a Monday needs to hold, in my opinion, to defend the bearish thesis. Also, higher time frame wise, we can see that Ethereum is taking out some major buy-side liquidity over here, and while taking out the major buy-side liquidity, it is stepping into this supply area over here. Guys, eventually I'm still expecting these equal highs around $4,000 to get taken out, but everyone is expecting them to get taken out. So how much sense does it make to instantly pump towards the liquidity? It makes a lot more sense to get a bit of a pullback first to freak people out and then to reverse the price back towards the upside. Now, if we want to see a pullback on Ethereum, it's gonna be from here, guys. This is the area to do so. This is the area to finally purge some sell-side liquidity resting and being engineered by that weekend pump. So as long as Monday high holds on Ethereum, you can look for shorts upon the pullback targeting lower levels. Now, these shorts to me are only meant as a hedge against my spot positions, but also against my current swing long positions. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure to smash the like button, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and also guys, if you haven't done so already, follow the first link in the description down below to get 14 days of access to Tribe Capital for just $1. And I'll catch you guys there. Ciao, ciao!